When I crossed the 50 mark, and that's a while ago now, for me, the fear was of regret. I don't want to wake up when I'm 80, or 90 and look back at what I didn't do.
Did you push record?
Thanks for tuning into Our Second Act with Paige and Silka. Today we continue our conversation with Tami McVay on recreating life after 50 and some of the challenges that we face that, real or not real, that keep us from living our best life. Tami, thanks for joining me again.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, one of the biggest obstacles that, and we've talked about this in other segments, you can never talk about this enough. What if we weren't fearful of anything? What if we knew exactly what was going to happen? What would we do? And how fear is probably the most negative and hurtful emotion that keeps us from living our life to the fullest. Tami, talk to me about that.
Well, I think fear never goes away because if you're constantly challenging yourself and you're working to grow, it's always going to be there. So it really comes down to getting comfortable with that feeling. And it's not easy, but just accepting it is part of the process.
How do we, how do you advise somebody to challenge their fears, to understand their fears? How do you overcome fear and everything that goes along with that?
I think many times it comes down to really focusing on what it is that you do want and letting that pull you forward. Because what happens is when we are afraid of the unknown, that we tend to keep staying in the back or in the past because it's comfortable. And by doing that, it just leaves us living in the past and not moving forward with the things that we really want to have.
Yeah. Well, I know that you said facing your challenges or releasing burdens go a long way to dealing with the fears that are holding you back. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think if you've gone through some challenge, like if you got laid off or divorced, something like that, and then now you're extra fearful of the unknown and wanting to move forward. But if you keep giving that challenge, that story power, keep telling people about your divorce, all the things you went through, telling people all about your layoff and your bad boss, whatever that may be, that is only leaving you stuck in that place instead of moving forward like you ultimately want.
So how do we release that?
So one of my favorite things to do is a burning ritual. Is to take a journal and you write down everything about that experience. And so all the good things and all the bad things and all the lessons that you learned from it, all the ways that it's held you back, all the gifts that it's brought you. You want to put the positive and the negative in there and then burn it. And it sounds so silly, but it really does work. You're just letting it go and, being grateful for the experience. And now you can move forward.
I like that. I like that. So literally just somehow, I guess it's the act of putting it on paper, making it real. And then by burning it, you're really burning it.
You're releasing it. And then also watching your words. If you find yourself keep telling the people the story over and over and over again, it's just keeping you in that mindset.
Yeah, you're focusing on that. Well, and then the fear that's holding you back, I suppose analyze what that's, what is the fear? How is it related to the burden or the challenge that you just released? And what's the worst thing that can happen if you face that fear?
Well, a lot of times if you focus on the worst thing that can happen, 99% of the time that never comes to fruition. And so instead of what's the best thing that can happen? What's the outcome I really want out of this? And having that positive expectancy and knowing, we've been around the block that things may fumble, may not go exactly the way we wanted, but so many times it can end up being better than we ever imagined.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that, for me, when I crossed the 50 mark, and that's a while ago now, for me, the fear was of regret, and I think that's, I don't want to wake up when I'm 80, or 90 and look back at what I didn't do. And so that, for some reason, and I don't know if somebody told me that, if I read it, it was a motivational quote, which is, again, you never know how you influence somebody just by something little that you say one day. But that released a lot of fear. I just, you know what, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because I don't want to regret not having done it.
I feel the same way. And I look at it as I'm going to keep going until I can't. And that way, if I make it, another 10 days, or I make it another 20 years or 50 years, that I know that I put it all out on the table. And that doesn't mean taking time to recharge and relax. It's also just making sure that you're living and by the values and the things that are important to you.
Yeah. I think another question somebody posed to me and again, you see it in motivational quotes, but, what would you do? I think I might have said it earlier, if you couldn't fail or if you didn't have fear. That just all of a sudden puts, to me, it did anyway, light on what I really wanted to do and how silly maybe the fears are.
Yes, I think that many times, we just make up assumptions of what we think is going to happen. We map out all these things that other people how they're going to react to whatever it is that we want. And so we let that stop us. But if all of a sudden somebody asks a simple question like that, you realize how silly all that is and how it really is just a story in your head.
Yeah. Well, and some fears maybe are real, but most of the time it's not. And I think that's what I wanted to get across in this segment is just understanding that the emotion of fear is probably the most crippling one there is to living life to the fullest. I know that when it comes to fear and adventure, you deal with that really hands-on.
Yes, being a Marine, I know the value of getting out of your comfort zone and doing things that you've never done before and what that does for your confidence. And so I'm taking a group to Portugal in March, and we're going to go biking all along the coast. So it'll be fabulous, having really great discussions along the way.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Well, we will link to that, of course. This is, a great opportunity to not only spend time with Tami one-on-one and, have the benefit of her coaching, but what an adventure. So if you, maybe that's your fear of getting out there, well, here, go with somebody like Tami and do something that you've never done before. So, let me close out, Tami, today. I just always enjoy talking with you. Again, we will link to all of Tami's information so you can get a hold of her directly. Anything else you want to leave our audience with before we sign off?
I think it's just important to say again that fear is always going to be there. It's just your relationship with how you deal with it. And if you decide you want to let it hold you back, or if you want to really make a big impact at this phase in your life.
Yeah. Good. Well, Tami, we'll see you soon again on another episode of Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
All right, thank you so much.
Bye. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right here. Just click on through to YouTube. And when you see the little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too. We'll notify you every time we post a new video. See you next time.